Here's what we're talking about today in our lineup. Kids getting back to school safely may include them testing themselves for COVID-19. We're going to talk about how this process would work. And at-home learning has been a challenge in rural school districts, how they're getting creative to help students this fall. Also this.
The amount of PPE we're finding, I mean, even just anecdotally walking through our streets is astounding.
It is ending up in our oceans as well, what you can be doing now to help.
We start with breaking news here at 5:30. A federal judge in Indiana is halting the first federal execution in 17 years, citing concerns over the coronavirus. Daniel Lee had been scheduled to die by lethal injection on Monday in Terre Haute, but Chief District Judge Jane Magnus Stinson ruled today the execution will be put on hold because the family of the victims wanted to attend but were afraid of traveling during the coronavirus pandemic. And a state Supreme Court investigation will determine the outcome of a controversy in the town of Edgewood. The town court has been shut down since the Madison County prosecutor decided not to do business with Edgewood. The prosecutor is upset that a court employee allegedly used the N-word twice against a deputy prosecutor who is black. That deputy is Rosemary Corey, who is investigating the police-involved fatal shooting of Drejon Reed in Marion County. In the Edgewood case, the state police declined to look into the matter. The employee denied the allegation. A town spokesperson says the state Supreme Court investigator has interviewed several people. The investigator is expected to turn over a report to the town at some point. And new information tonight about the fate of a natural landmark in Johnson County. The leaning tree in Franklin will be removed because it is deemed to be dangerous. The road leading to the tree will remain closed. The tree's removal has not been set because the county needs to coordinate with the property owners, the tree removal company, and there's a concern with overhead utility lines. The cost of cutting the tree down is still undetermined. Kyle, that's a beautiful shot that we're looking out outside.
And Amanda, it is. After 7 straight days in the 90s, we're actually getting a break from that 80-degree heat across central Indiana. Just some fair weather cumulus clouds there in the Bloomington area, and not expecting any rain here as we go through the evening. Your temperature in Monroe County at 87 degrees. It's 82, though, in Indianapolis. It's felt very comfortable out there throughout the day, especially with that breeze. It's 81 right now in Zionsville, 84 in New Pal, and Greenfield at 82 degrees. Here's that northwest breeze. It's been gusting at times around 35 miles per hour, still steady between about 10 and 15 miles per hour for us this evening. Satellite and radar shows that we've got those showers mainly over in Ohio, and that's where they will stay here this evening. So if you've got some outdoor plans, really a pretty nice night compared to where we've been. Temperature 82 degrees for you at 8 o'clock. 79 at 9 with sunny skies. The rain chances are going to be increasing for the weekend, but not a washout. We'll detail that in a few minutes. Chris?
More promising results of a possible coronavirus treatment. The makers of remdesivir put out more results today of how the drug works in COVID patients. It found in the sickest people, remdesivir reduced the risk of death by 62% compared to someone who just got standard care. Those on the drug also recovered faster, and while hopeful, the drug company does admit that more trials are needed. The World Health Organization is investigating how coronavirus started. 2 experts arriving in Beijing today, and they want to find out if the virus jumped from an animal to a human, and if it did, what species was it? We are seeing a major increase in the amount of guns being bought during the pandemic. It's estimated more than 2 million more firearms were bought this year. That's according to numbers from the National Instant Criminal Background Check System from March through May. The Violence Prevention Research Program says that is a 64% increase compared to past years. Now, with those new buys has come more violence. Nonprofit Gun Violence Archive found an almost 8% increase in intentional shootings, both deadly and non-deadly, and that includes 776 more injuries and deaths.
Part of the stay-at-home orders could mean that there is a reduction in violence in public, and perhaps the violence is moving more indoors where people are stuck at home, perhaps in relationships that are prone to violence.
States that did not deem gun stores essential had fewer sales and less violence. You look at this map right here, those are the states that you will see in green. Now, some of that was only temporary because of challenges citing the Second Amendment. Now, the states that you see in red, they had the most firearm buys. Researchers are still going over the findings, but they felt that these preliminary findings should still be released.
Leaders need to be thinking about what they can do to address firearm violence as part of their pandemic response.
They say more states should look at limiting the amount of guns someone can buy at a time. California and some other states, they do have laws like that. These findings are from before there was renewed attention in America on race relations. So that's what researchers say they will look at next. They also plan to look at if suicide has increased during the pandemic. Let's get back to our lineup. Kids are experimenting with testing themselves for COVID-19 at 2 summer camps, how this process could work in schools in the future.
Keller and Keller.
Welcome back. The coronavirus pandemic created all kinds of shortages at grocery stores. The good news, you can find toilet paper again. In fact, some stores now have too much of the coveted TP. But consumer reporter John Matarese shows us some other grocery items still in short supply, so you don't waste your money.
Every few days, viewers reach out to us about some item they can't find in stores during this pandemic. Well, it turns out a number of grocery items are still in short supply this summer. For a few months, finding disinfecting wipes, toilet paper, or hand sanitizer was like striking gold. But have you noticed now many other items are missing from store shelves? Less popular brands that people nevertheless love.
That's just one of the hometown favorites.
Libby Turpin can't find her favorite hot dogs, Cons. Other viewers tell us they can't find Diet Mountain Dew, caffeine-free Dr. Pepper, Barks Root Beer, Campbell's Healthy Request soups, and of course many cleaning products, including Formula 409, Clorox spray, and scrubbing bubbles. And from the Doesn't That Stink file, the reason you can't find some of your favorites. Manufacturers say they're focusing on the most popular brands during the pandemic. Some slow-selling brands have been put on hold a few months to keep the major brands flowing. But a website called In Stock, that's In Stock without a C, may be able to help you find those hard-to-find favorites that you haven't seen on the shelves since last winter. Unhappy? Send an email to the brand's website or post on their Facebook page that you want them back so you don't waste your money. I'm John Matarese for RTV6.
Kids are learning to do coronavirus testing on themselves. It's part of an ongoing study at 2 San Francisco summer camps. Both of them are indoors with hopes of being able to translate the research to schools. The tests are a little different from what you might see at a hospital or a drive-up site, though. They do use the same swab, but instead of pushing deep into the nose, kids will wipe around the inside of their nostril.
If there's an adult who's putting something into their nose, kids tend to be a little bit less comfortable with that. So our experience is that they're really good at it, and that means we're getting better samples.
That's Dr. Naomi Bardak, who is leading the study. She says kids doing their own swabs also allows for more physical distancing and therefore less of a need for PPE. Researchers hope the benefits may make up for the change in testing style that does lead to a slight drop in effectiveness. Now, the White House's coronavirus coordinator says this kind of testing in schools is something that we've never done before.
We've done it a little bit with flu when you've had a flu outbreak in a school and the school has had to close that classroom or stop birthday parties or ask people to stop sleepovers. It's going to be like that, but in a different way. And I think we have to be more quickly responsive because of the amount of asymptomatic spread.
Dr. Bardak says kids doing their own tests in schools would likely be in addition to symptom screening. Her plan is to do another school-based study in the fall. She says it should be fairly easy to take the idea to a national scale. The main hurdles would be having the tests available and the facilities to process them quickly. All right, let's check back in our lineup. At-home learning has been a challenge for students in rural school districts across the country.
We had to treat this just like the electric power grid, where every home has electricity. It needs to be the same way with connectivity.
How rural schools are having to get creative to address internet issues as we look towards the fall.
Working for you.
Distance learning became the norm for tens of millions of students this past spring. But not every student has access to the internet, and for those in rural school districts, it can be a big challenge. And as Maya Rodriguez explains, they're having to get creative as students prepare to start learning again in the fall.
The mountains of southeastern Tennessee soaring into the sky as the Tennessee River rolls by. But the beautiful landscape isn't just the site of a natural divide, it's the site of a digital one, too.
The issue came when we had to go total shutdown, total remote.
Alan Pratt heads up the National Rural Education Association, representing rural school districts in all 50 states. He says when the pandemic forced all students into remote learning, many in rural areas couldn't get on the internet.
Well, I think you have to look at it from the sense of we're going to treat this just like the electric power grid, where every home has electricity. It needs to be the same way with connectivity.
More than a quarter of all Americans don't have high-speed internet access at home. In terms of students, 9 million school children are not able to do remote learning at home. Here in Marion County, Tennessee, about 30% of the 4,000 students did not have internet access when the pandemic began. Director of Schools Mark Griffith says they relied on hand-delivering paper lesson packets.
We would actually take some food and some of the packets out to the rural areas.
To try and deal with the lack of internet access, the school district here set up mobile hotspots in the parking lots of some of their schools. It seemed to help and reduce the number of students without internet connectivity to below 20%.
But they know that doesn't reach everyone. To do that, teachers will record class lessons onto flash drives that will then be handed out to students who don't have internet access.
They will be able to pick up that recording. They will be a week behind, but we understand that.
It's a short-term solution to a long-term problem that Alan Pratt says will need major funding from federal and state governments to fix.
And then our school systems need to help, obviously, and be a part of it, but they shouldn't be in the business of providing broadband. They should be in the business of educating students.
Students that will be heading back into school mode by the end of the summer. In Marion County, Tennessee, I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Maya, thank you. And across the country, plans to fix roads and bridges are on hold. It's about $8.5 billion worth of work that is delayed or canceled. This is according to the American Road and Transportation Builders Association. They're calling on Congress to provide a $50 billion rescue package to state transportation agencies. Leaders of those departments say that is how much they've lost in infrastructure funding. That's because of a loss in tax revenue from a sharp drop in the demand for gas.
Not a bad way to end the week here. Those look a little ominous from time to time, but not expecting any more than a passing sprinkle as we go through the next several hours. The clouds and that northwest breeze keeping temperatures out of the 90s today. We're at 82 right now. That humidity lower as we've got that wind out of the northwest around 15 to 20 miles per hour. As we look at the snapshot of the weekend forecast here, it will be toasty again on Saturday at 88 degrees, 82 on Sunday with a better chance for some thunderstorms. Saturday, certainly not going to be a washout. Most of the day will be dry here as we get those temperatures back into the middle and upper 80s. We look at TrueCast, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Those clouds will start to build, but it's not until 8 o'clock in the evening we see that line of thunderstorms moving in. So really Saturday night looks to be the best chance for some widespread rain and thunderstorms moving through before that kind of winds down a little bit. Right now, there is a marginal risk over the western third of the state on Saturday evening that we could have some gusty winds, possibly some hail in a few storms, but wouldn't be surprised if that gets expanded to the east a little bit more. And then on Sunday, a few morning showers, and then a couple more of those as we get into the heating of the afternoon. As far as the 7-day planning forecast, we take that break from the 90s right on into early next week, but they are back here as we get to Wednesday and beyond with about a 30% chance of showers and storms, and could even get to our hottest so far this year, Friday at 95. Chris?
Let's start the news feed. United's feeling the impact of COVID. The airline has joined other major U.S. carriers to reach a deal for early leaves for pilots. Airlines can't lay off or furlough workers through October 1st as part of their deal with the government. United said 36,000 workers could be furloughed this fall. Well, fewer kids have been playing football in recent years, and doctors say that could be leading to a drop in trips to the ER. CDC study says the amount of ER visits for traumatic brain injuries is down 32% between 2012 and 2018. Google is doing more to protect your privacy. It is now blocking ads for products that secretly monitor or track people. This includes ads for spyware and surveillance equipment. A new breed of pollution is littering our streets and shores, and we're talking about disposable face masks and plastic gloves. Activists are calling on people around the world to pitch in and help stop the new pandemic of pollution. As Amanda Brandeis learned, efforts to clean cities are stalled because of COVID-19.
So I've been a trash picker for a long time.
A self-described marine enthusiast.
I feel a deep connection.
Alex Farron spends a lot of time on the coast with a reusable bag in one hand and a trash grabber in the other.
The ocean just holds so much beauty.
She volunteers for the San Diego Surf Rider Foundation. Last year, they removed 16,000 pounds of trash, but the large gatherings are now on hold because of the pandemic.
Plastic pollution hasn't stopped. Plastic is being used, if not more than ever.
The use of personal protective equipment, or PPE, has surged around the world. One study estimates 129 billion face masks and 65 billion gloves are being used each month.
The amount of PPE we're finding, I mean, even just anecdotally walking through our streets is astounding.
A French nonprofit is documenting PPE waste in the Mediterranean Sea, sharing images of gloves and face coverings littering the seafloor. The pandemic also reversed other progress made by environmental groups.
Initially, we saw a big trend away from reusable items at all. My coffee shop wouldn't take my mug. My grocery store would let me bring my bag.
Farron says she was okay with this safety precaution early on because little was known about the virus, but points to the CDC now saying COVID is mainly spread from person to person within close contact. The CDC says transmission through contaminated surfaces has not been documented.
But still, this information is being pushed and disseminated.
Now the nonprofit is launching a solo cleanup campaign, encouraging individuals to clean the old and new waste.
Empower people to go out and pick up trash in their neighborhood, in their parks, at their local beach, wherever they feel comfortable.
Surfrider San Diego has guidelines on how to do this safely, including wear a mask, reusable gloves, and use a trash grabber if possible. Also bring 2 bags to separate PPE from recyclables. And those who can't get out and clean can do their part by making sure their PPE ends up in a trash can and not the ground.
Not just an ocean issue, it's an environment issue.
In San Diego, I'm Amanda Brandeis reporting.
Amanda, thank you. And coronavirus has kept older Americans in group living situations away from family the longest. Some have likened it to feeling like being a prisoner in their own homes. Now, the term sparked an idea for the owner of an assisted living facility outside of Houston. She wanted to find a new way for her 100-plus residents to see their family.
Well, we're in prison. Let's make a little box that looks like we can have visitation rights in prison because we're on lockdown. These residents need this, and this is just a little light today.
The visitation booth allows family members to go inside while the resident stays outside, and they can visit and talk through plexiglass as well as a monitor. All right, one last check of our lineup. There's a new push to get tens of thousands of volunteers signed up for trials on a possible COVID-19 vaccine. Who's best for this and how those trials are going to work?
Indy Home Experts at theindychannel.com.
Efforts are underway right now to recruit tens of thousands of people for clinical trials on a possible COVID-19 vaccine. The newly established COVID-19 Prevention Trials Network is behind this, the network bringing together all of the resources of the academic infectious disease community in the United States to evaluate COVID-19 vaccines as quickly and safely as possible. The first phase 3 clinical trial for a vaccine is scheduled for this month. Then the plans to do one trial in August, one in September, and possibly one in October. A different vaccine will be tested in each trial. They're trying to determine which vaccine will be best for different types of people.
It's really important for us to license many vaccines. The manufacturing capability of a vaccine, is often limited by the goods and the factories. So 500 million sounds like a lot of doses, or 1 billion sounds like a lot of doses. Well, we have 330 million in our own population, but we have to vaccinate the world here.
Dr. Larry Corey is one of the doctors leading the network's vaccine testing. He says they need 30,000 people for each trial. Making the trial large helps doctors look at the safety of the vaccine and helps them detect whether it works and who it works for as quickly as possible.
These trials need to be inclusive and they need to be diverse. They need to be multi-generational and multi-ethnic. So we know we need to enroll the people who are most affected by this.
They want to have people who are at high risk of infection in the trials to see if a vaccine will prevent them from having to go to the hospital if they get the virus. He says right now they're not looking for healthy people who are asymptomatic. Dr. Corey stresses vaccines are vetted as much as possible before these trials, and there is no shortcuts on safety. The trials will be happening at hundreds of sites across the country. They hope to have results in the first part of next year. So if you are interested in volunteering, you can sign up at coronaviruspreventionnetwork.org. African American women are at a higher risk for a number of health issues. And on Monday, how a national movement driven by black women is working to change that one step at a time.
And we're going to continue with our break from the 90s through the upcoming weekend. Chance for thunderstorms, but most likely as we get into our Saturday night. And then those 90s, they come back our way as we get into. Thanks for joining.